Council. This day, the 20th of what are we at? The 28th of 1st of March, isn't it? Goodness me, 1st of March, isn't the year going quickly? 1st of March, welcome all, welcome councillors, staff, and to those members of the gallery joining us from our community. Thank you for coming along and giving us your time today. And for those watching via live stream, welcome to you as well. So we have the agenda in front of us, councillors, so I'll open the meeting. Well, thank you all for your attendance. We don't have any apologies or leaves of absence. Well, let's skip straight through to declarations of interest. Oh, yes, sorry. So I'll now move that the special meeting, Pound Street, Kingaroy, that was adjourned on February 20, 2023, resumes at 1:13 p.m. on 1 March 2023. Do we have a mover? A seconder? Councillor Duff, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, let's go straight through then, councillors, to item 5, conflict of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to declare? Councillor Potter.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I did mention this to CEO Mark and that a while ago, and I did walk out of the discussion when we're talking about the RSL because my husband is a member of the Kingaroy RSL sub-branch, not an executive, just a member, and...
We'll go to you. Thank you, Mr CEO.
I can grab the bit of paper, but the conflict only arises if they're an executive member. Yeah.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm. I was thinking out loud, but I hold a membership card for the Kingaroy RSL. But yeah, no, not relevant. Thank you.
Okay, so councillors, we'll move on. Item 6.1, I'd now like to present and move the following motion. Notice of motion. Sappenet Regional Council, and I'd like to change that, Mr CEO, subdivides 6,000 square metres of the northern end of Pound Street allotment. So Kimberley, if we could change that to 6,000, please. And in brackets after that, put 150 metres by 40 metres. The northern end of the Pound Street allotment and gift such to the Kingaroy Memorandum RSL sub-branch for the purpose of developing up to 14 accommodation units for veterans and their widows. Item 2, markets the remaining land area that is suitable for an over-60s residential development to potential investors and developers for the construction of a retirement village with independently owned unit dwellings. And 3, that the flood-prone electricity easement area of the northern end be retained as a community asset for the community park and for the community park fronting Kingaroy Street land and development of a community garden and consideration of a public car park accessible via Pound Street. I'd like to move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Okay, I've put the rationale there. We have discussed this quite a bit. I'm not going to obviously labour the point with councillors other than to say that I think this for me is something that is in response to the housing crisis that we have across our region. I believe it's a good use of the land in terms of the fact that the RSL sub-branch are ready to go. They've got the money to start their first stage, which I believe will be an initial 6 units. And then I believe that it does lend itself to a residential development. From conversations I've had around the community, there are a number of different options and perspectives we heard on this from the community, but this one is the one that I have predominantly heard about, and I know local resident Julie Berry has shared an email with Councillor Shoemaker, who's now distributed that to all councillors, articulating her views and those of some of her fellow retirees around the region that goes to this issue. So I'd like to commit it now to the chamber and open it for debate. Thank you. Who was first? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fact, the Pound Street site is of strategic importance to the Kingaroy Town Centre, being the largest vacant lot within the principal centre zone. Its development allows for 2 to 3 storey buildings in the footprint. Fact, the purpose of the principal centre zone is to provide a variety of uses and activities. Accepted development for the lot includes commercial, retail, residential, healthcare, office space, hotel, service industry, or showroom. Fact, we have received advice that subdividing the site into smaller parcels for the intent of single residential dwellings is not supported in the principal centre zone and would present significant conflicts with the purpose and overall outcomes of the zone. Fact, the site could be maximised for medium density living and support mixed tenure, such as apartments up to 3 stories with space for commercial and activities underneath. Fact, we've received advice that multiple dwelling development without commercial activities on the ground floor would trigger an impact assessable material change of use development application and would take time and money to progress. Fact, we've received a valuation that suggests the property has a market value of more than $1 million. Fact, we've received multiple offers to purchase the land and complete a mixed-use development that includes commercial, residential and community uses. These are all the facts. I certainly recognise the need for housing, and the current rental vacancy rate of 0.1% in our region screams for this. However, I also believe the site could house more than the 12 units proposed if it were to be developed for medium density living. This may include 1 and 2 bedroom apartments with commercial activities underneath. From the information provided, the RSL has the capital to commence the construction on 6 units, which would be a wonderful start to providing more veteran housing. This gift will initially support 6 veterans with their housing needs once an impact assessable application has been submitted to Council. The RSL have indicated as funds are made available, more units will be added to the build and that the payback period on the units will enable this to happen in a staged way. The RSL has also demonstrated they have cash in the bank and the capability to borrow funds to buy the land and see the outcome achieved. I understand that by gifting the land, we are essentially co-investing a ratepayer-owned asset, so the housing outcomes of 6 units can be achieved sooner. And in listening to the community, there is clear contention as to if Council should gift this lot of land. I've had many residents of our region state that the Pound Street lot should be sold to the highest bidder and the funds reinvested in our beautiful region. I absolutely believe we have a duty of care to our veterans. They've served our country and sacrificed so much for our freedoms, and so I would like to propose an alternative solution, and I'd like to move a foreshadowed motion, please. The foreshadowed motion is that Council offer to gift the Kingaroy Memorandum RSL sub-branch (24 Haley Street, Kingaroy), which is lot 5-6 on RP 37004 and lot 5-5 on 37004 and lot 5-5 on RP 37004 for the purposes of constructing veteran housing, and seek a seconder. Yes. Shall I suggest this is a foreshadowed or an amendment? Foreshadowed.
Foreshadowed. Yep. We'll note the foreshadowed. Thank you, councillor. So we'll do the motion as here. So and then we'll go to the foreshadowed after that. Okay. Further speakers. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I actually cannot support this for the pure reason is, especially with the residential development, the over 60s, considering we've got another company in town that's doing another development that's hoping to start in September with 130 units in. So, and I think that's indirect. It's going straight against what we've got a developer coming to town to do. So I cannot support this motion.
Further speakers? No. Councillor Duff, are you looking to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I 100% am looking to speak and support this motion. I think that the feedback I've been getting around the community is that the RSL, that they would support the majority, I haven't spoken to anyone who doesn't support the RSL getting that land gifted. I haven't had any pushback, and I've spoken to a significant number of Kingaroy business houses and people. I think that they are shovel ready with regards to getting this project started. We've been sitting on Pound Street for a very, very, very long time, and I think the community is keen to see something happen. If we gift at least that section of land to the RSL, something will happen straight away, which will be a positive for not only for the RSL but for the whole community of Kingaroy to see something actually happening, and also for those veterans. The other, I don't think that it is such a big deal, as you're indicating, Councillor Shoemaker, that if it's impact accessible, because impact accessible, and I've been told by this with the planners, it's just going out to public notification, and then it's a process. It's not not too onerous. It's just part of the whole process. So it certainly is not something that the RSL sub-branch couldn't deal with. I think that, like what Councillor Potter has said about the over 60s and the residential development, I think that if you had this one and that one, we're still not going to address the housing crisis. I think it wouldn't matter if you had half a dozen of them. We are so short of houses. So I don't think that the fact that your argument that there's already another potential development happening is an argument. I also support the community garden, but also that car park area. I know that there's a number, like different groups, particularly wanting to use that for a car park. So I think that it ticks every box for me, and I'm 100% supportive of this going ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With all due respect to the RSL and wonderful organisation that they are, and Councillor Duff, I have not had a conversation with a ratepayer that's happy to gift that away. Some of the most valuable real estate in the centre of town, and we have so many things on the table that I'm led to believe that we're still discussing, and just to give this away without further consultation with some of those projects that are pretty exciting in themselves, if things can progress along the way. And that word "if" is a pretty big word, not a four-letter word at all. So I can't support this. There's some great initiatives there, of course, but council might have been sitting on this land for a long time, but in support of the ratepayers that I have spoken to, or they have spoken to me, and we're supposed to represent them, there is no way that they are comfortable in gifting this away. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Atkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. There's a couple of things that concern me about this. One of them is the gifting of the land, because I think we have a responsibility to all ratepayers across the region. And while I am fully supportive of the RSL and veterans, I just think that there is more than just 6 or 12 people that may move into that. So that's my one thing. On the land with the 60s, the over 60s residential development, I know that from the email that we did receive that, people seem very keen on actually owning their own place without it being a body corporate. And I really do not believe that that is possible to do that. It would have to be a body corporate to go in there, because the size of it, you couldn't put streets big enough and you couldn't put blocks, I don't think, small enough without it actually being part of a body corporate. Bearing in mind, of course, as Councillor Potter has said, about the 130 units. One of the other things, as a real estate agent who deals with people looking to move to this area all the time, I'm a little concerned that we are looking at giving away land that then is in direct competition with commercial operators. We're trying to encourage people to come in here, and we need more than just those 12 units. We need more people to come in here and invest in our region and put housing in. So we can't give one organisation a step up competing against other commercial operators. One of the things that I always find, it's the commercial investors that are going to be supplying most of the houses. They're the ones you want to be attracting. And if they're competing with people who have been given land, it makes it, they're behind the 8 ball to start with. So that's, you know, just a couple of the things that I feel. Also, I know that we have kept that land for a long time. It's been sitting there for a long time, but it's not eating anything. You know, I just think to go, just because we suddenly say, oh, hang on, it's sitting there, what are we going to do? Let's get rid of it. No, we need to be able to make the best of it, get the best for our ratepayers for it. I think that we should be looking at putting it up for tender. There a number of people have made inquiries on it, and it's our responsibility, being looking after our community, to make sure that we achieve the best outcome for our community. Thank you.
Anything from Councillor Jones?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. First question I would ask through you to our planning or GM. The land at Pound Street is currently zoned what?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It's zoned principal centre zone, so it's the same as the centre of, which is essentially is what Councillor Shoemaker outlined earlier.
So, yeah, sorry, I was reading notes and I didn't pay full attention to Councillor. So what's that enabled you to build on there? Can you put residential lots on there, no worries at all, as it's currently zoned?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, so as discussed, yeah, it would be impact assessable application, so it isn't the accepted development. So.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we have had it a long time, and we spent a lot of time. A lot of that time's been caught up in the fact that we've done this most appropriate land use for what was there, and we spent a lot of money on it. And with the RSL's proposal, I fully understand and I appreciate the service that they provide to our ex-servicemen and women. But as you've mentioned, Mayor, that we have other options on the table, and I don't support this. And me personally, with the amount of options that we have on the table, and I've put forward one, and you talk about addressing the housing shortages and all that, and with my proposal, it can support that. And I'll just use an example. There's one current employer that has over 200 people using residential houses as rental properties that I've spoken to, and I haven't done any more other than put that proposal to you, to the whole of council, and I've sat on my hands because I didn't know we're waiting for this meeting. So I would like to see, for another couple of months, get every opportunity, every proposal that's been put forward, and give it time to fully investigate. Now, whoever's driving it, like my proposal and all that, go out, get all the information. I've got to talk to a lot of big stakeholders and invite all councillors to be a part of that. And there's another proposal here from another gentleman. There's been offers to buy it and all that sort of stuff with other proposals. So as a whole, that block is very valuable. And to start cutting it off, and I've said this before, if we're going to start cutting it up into 6,000 square metre blocks, divide the whole lot up. Either do it all or whatever, but I don't support that. But what I do support is the fact that we have had a lot of interest, we have had a lot of proposals put on the table, and I think, out of fairness, every proposal that's been put forward should have the opportunity to be fully investigated and come back at a later date. So I won't be supporting this on that, and I see Councillor Shoemaker's foreshadowed motion. There's another offer there. I'd like to have seen a map. I believe I know where it is, and I think it may be suitable in discussions that we've had prior. It may not be the size of land that the RSL want initially to do the whole lot, but it may accommodate 4 to 6 units. I don't know. But there is an option there for the RSL. If they're ready to go, they have an option, but I won't be supporting that simply because I believe that all the other proposals should have the right to be fully investigated, over the next couple of months, or for a 2-month, 3-month period or something like that, for that extra amount of time, for the length of time that we have owned it. And I think it's only at a small cost to council. I think it costs us about 5 or 7 grand. I'd be corrected on that with rates and a bit of maintenance, mowing and all that sort of stuff to keep it for a year. It's not costing the ratepayers an exceptional amount of money. So I personally would like to see that all options have the opportunity over the next 3 months to be fully investigated and come back. And I think what we need to, I'll just leave it at that and see what the rest of the comments are.
Okay, I'll now issue my right of reply. First of all, in terms of Councillor Potter, I appreciate your concerns. There's another development going up with 30 units, and please correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding that they're going to be rentals, so they'll be available for people to rent, not own. This proposal is to give people the right to own their own property, and I think that there is a strong demand in our community for people that want to own their own, for example, 2-bedroom unit and move out of the 4-bedroom home that they've occupied, and they're now in a situation where all they need is a small 2-bedroom unit because they may be by themselves or they may be with a partner, but they've raised the children, they've left home. I think we've got a lot of people in Kingaroy in that situation that don't want to rent in Markwell Street, that want to own their own homes. I think in terms of Haley Street, I know we've raised this in our discussions with the RSL, and my understanding from them was that they had said that, and I could be wrong here, so please stop me if I'm wrong, that the land we're looking at is across Memorial Park, and that the RSL did say to us that they wouldn't be interested in that because it could only take 4 units, and that they didn't want to just stop at 4. They wanted to build more than 4 units. So just on that issue, I don't believe that you have to have a body corporate. I've looked at the land area where in other parts, in other regions, they've done subdivisions and sold off the 300 square allotments with the units on them. I know where my son lives, down the coast there is one. Each of those lots of land are individual titles. They are owned independently, and all the infrastructure is provided. And from what I've been able to scope out, and my son's a builder, and from his advice, the land area that they are built on is no smaller than the land area we're looking at here, because the modern day designs are such that they can actually build and design these things to fit onto those smaller allotments. The next thing I could say is that, so that was direct building advice that I did get. There is, in terms of competition with commercial operators, I don't think there are any commercial operators at the moment who have got land to build units on. There is no land available for them. So I don't think by the RSL doing this that they're going to be undermining any commercial operator, because they are all booked up. Builders are booked up for 2 years in Kingaroy, and there's no land to build any units anyway. So I think that's an academic argument. Look, I think in terms of council and our return, this is an opportunity to get rates revenue. If we've got a number of units built on that site, multiply that by whatever the going rate is, and that's going to be a stream of income for the rest of the life of council every year in rates that we're going to collect off all of those independent lots. And look, I've got to say, I live in Kingaroy, and I'm hearing around Kingaroy as I walk around the streets, people lining up, retirees lining up to sell the 4-bedroom home, to downsize into a 2-bedroom unit, because the kids have left home, and that's going to free up houses for families, for workers, like you spoke about, Councillor Jones, to come and buy and live in their homes. You can't buy a 4-bedroom home in Kingaroy at the moment. This initiative, councillors, would free up all of those homes to go on the open market once they're built. So I think there's the additional benefit of that. And I would like to close in sharing Julie. I see Julie here today. Her letter, because I know that she does interact with a number of retirees in our community here in Kingaroy. My thoughts on are as follows. Build low-cost housing for the very large number of elderly residents of the Kingaroy area. Living on one's own, as so many older people do, I feel what is desperately needed is individually owned, easy to maintain houses with one-car accommodation, in possibly a gated complex, or at least a place where people feel safe to reside. The sense of security could incorporate plenty of lighting, plus cameras perhaps, screen-safe security screens on the accommodation windows and doors. A low-maintenance compound, no lifts, no pool, no other community facilities to negate the necessity for residents having to pay extras like body corporate. Many of us living on the age pension are already challenged. This location is ideal, with it being so close to shops, particularly people suffering mobility issues. We do not require more retail shops. There are so many vacant premises in the Kingaroy CBD. We also do not require an aged care facility, as Kingaroy has 2 nursing homes, so another is not required at this stage. What is required is a complex designed for elderly homeowners seeking peace of mind and quality of life, with which many agree. The project would be a win-win situation for so many. The South Bennett Regional Council would gain financially with the sustainability increased number of ratepayers. Residents needing to sell their current homes in order to move into the complex may possibly make a little money, which would be a bonus, and a large range of properties would become available to purchase for the influx of people moving to this area. The aged population in this region contributes in many ways to its community, and if Council were to implement the type of project I have put forward, it would not only benefit Council economically, it would also resonate favourably with community members who would be receiving consideration from Council in improving the quality and contentment in their lives. I'll conclude with that. Thank you all. We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Duff and Councillor Otto. Those against? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Erkins, Jones, Potter and Henshin. The motion has been defeated 5 votes to 2. We'll now go to Councillor Shoemaker's foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This lot of land on Haley Street is adjacent to Memorial Park. It's zoned, I would like to move that Council offer to gift the Kingaroy Memorandum RSL sub-branch the vacant residential lot at 24 Haley Street, Kingaroy, lot 56 on RP 37004 and lot 55 on RP 37004 for the purpose of construction of veteran housing. And seek a seconder, please, Mr Mayor.
Second. We have a seconder in Councillor Erkins. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This lot of land on Haley Street is adjacent to Memorial Park. It is zoned residential and is similar walking distance to Kingaroy CBD as the Pound Street lot. While it's not the RSL's first option, this compromise would enable the RSL to commence construction of the 4 to 6 units or townhouses immediately. And I agree with you that with modern day designing, I believe this can be achieved, and I have seen this achieved through the social housing projects that we have undertaken on much smaller lots of land. The RSL have demonstrated they have the funds to build on this land and will receive an immediate return on their investment, which can be used to fund further housing in other areas into the future. Through the land review undertaken by Council, we know there may be opportunities to work with the state government to convert existing underutilised park land in Kingaroy to residential land. I would like to see us progress this opportunity with Earl Park, and note there may be some more lots of land available when the RSL has the funds to build the remaining units proposed. I'm sure Council would welcome an opportunity to partner with the RSL should this land become available. I genuinely empathise with the RSL. However, I also understand that they will create a return on their investment, and for the ratepayers of the region, if we are to decide to gift Pound Street, we will not create a return on that lot of land for our shareholders, our ratepayers. We need to be strategic with assets like Pound Street and ensure we achieve the best possible outcomes. I'm concerned that the subdivision and rezoning of Pound Street land is likely to stifle developer interest. I know I've spoken with residents who live around other commercial developments and am of the view that if we can avoid such, we should do what we can. There's also drainage and access concerns that require negotiation with DTMR, and this will take time that I know we don't have. The fact is, the Kingaroy Memorandum RSL sub-branch currently own 12 villas that have been built in stages and are fully occupied and hold 14 valid applications for veterans and widows for housing. In correspondence provided to Council, it's understood the RSL would initially fund the development of 6 units. However, the RSL had not yet conducted any preliminaries on the site, nor had they provided any construction drawings, and I'm concerned that with the rising CPI and construction costs that more scoping work needs to be done to enable this project to commence and be confident in the delivery of this project. Council recently moved a motion to undertake an immediate boundary realignment to increase the lot size and then proceed to offer the single allotment presented here at 24 Haley Street for sale by offer to the open market. This land is adjacent to the Kingaroy Memorial Park, is comparable walking distance to the CBD as Pound Street, and in their proposal, the RSL recognised the initial cost of the project is a weakness and the financial sustainability of the sub-branch is a potential threat to the success of the proposed project they've put forward. While I understand this is not the preferred option, the lot does meet the aspirations of the RSL's project being close to town, enabling the club to offer low-cost accommodation as they don't have to cover the cost of purchasing the land. They can certainly make their dollars stretch further. It's close to vital services, including the hospital, and has easy access. If the RSL were to start on this lot, they would achieve the goal of reducing their waiting list for low-cost accommodation, attracting current defence personnel to Kingaroy and promoting the local district, as well as providing a secure area for children to play at Memorial Park while meetings and social activities are conducted. The RSL have demonstrated capacity to borrow funds to buy a suitable parcel of land should the Haley Street lot not meet their needs. However, I understand this too will impact their ability to construct the 6 proposed units. I understand this is a compromise. However, many members of the community that I've spoken with are of the view that if Council gives Pound Street, the housing outcome achieved will only support 6 people with a long-term view of more. However, the timeline of this is unknown. Many have expressed the view that if developed effectively, Pound Street has the capacity to support many more people and many more outcomes, as you have described today with the proposal for the over 60s village as an example of this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend my motion to the chamber.
Further speakers? Okay, look, I'm going to vote against this because my understanding is that the land doesn't... 2 things. One, there are 2 lots there. My understanding is that the lot closest to the drainage... Councillor Henson, you spoke the other day about the water that comes down through that drain into Memorial Park and the concerns you raised about the flooding with the Kingaroy Memorial Park master plan. So this is the same channel of water that I understand runs through one of these 2 blocks. Would that block not then be exposed to flooding as that water comes down through that channel? And I do believe that in the report, Manager Rebecca did indicate to us that the block closest to the drainage would be potentially a flood area, and that we would have to perhaps subdivide that so that we could take off the part that could be under flood. But I'm keen to hear from Manager Darcy or any other officers, Manager Rebecca, as to the lots in question and whether there is a potential flooding issue on one of those 2 lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. That particular block, yes, there is some flooding issues on that drain. So we would have to do some further investigations to work out the extent of that flooding. There's a possibility with some good design that could be mitigated through whatever sort of units you do design, like put the car park on that section rather than the actual buildings. So there are options to mitigate any flooding, but that would have to be investigated further.
Thank you, Manager. I guess my second concern is that I believe we put this to the RSL fellows when they were here a few weeks back, and they indicated that they wouldn't be interested in Haley Street. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when we had the executive of the sub-branch here, they did say to us that they weren't interested in Haley Street. It wouldn't suit their needs. So happy to be corrected, but that was my understanding. Okay, Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe the motion is that we offer to gift the land to the Memorial RSL. We're not saying that they have to take it. I think the offer's there, and it's then up to them to have a look and see whether it is suitable. If it wasn't suitable, then for us, I believe we would all be looking for alternates to offer. But I know that Councillor Shoemaker has been really on the ball trying to find something. And as I said, it's an offer to the RSL. We're not twisting their arm. If it's not suitable, I'm sure that we will be looking to find something else that is suitable. After all, we all have the same goal, and that is to assist them to find something to build some units.
Councillor Duff.
I'm speaking against this because I think if it's already been discussed that it's not an area that that's big enough for them and they don't want, it's just like a token gesture. Or we just tick a box and we offer this to the RSL as a second prize for something that they actually, it won't be of any value to them. I mean, the only other way that you do it is just take off for the purpose of construction, gift it to them, and then they can try and sell it to somebody for residential purposes and just get some more money to gather together to build more units. But as it stands for the purpose of construction, if it doesn't tick the box for the RSL, I see it pointless in us gifting them that land.
Further speakers? Councillor Jones and then Councillor Henson. Thank you.
I was trying to have an easy afternoon, Mr Mayor, but I will challenge that comment from Councillor Duff as far as second prize. I tell you what, if we were to go out and offer a block of land to any other community organisation or something like that that was in look for it, I'm sure they'd class it as first prize. So I don't know how you can say that, sure they don't get what they're looking for, as such as the proposal that was put forward by the Mayor, but there is an option that Councillor Shoemaker has put forward, and I think it's, whether or not the RSL, as Councillor Erkins indicated, they can refuse it if they wish, but like Councillor Erkins also said, we all want to see the outcome for the RSL to be able to build their land somewhere else. We just don't agree at the moment where it is, and if we can work through, there's a number of blocks, and as Councillor Shoemaker said, if we can find something else that's more suitable, and maybe we can sit down and have a chat with the RSL and say, look, these are the blocks of land that council own or whatever, and they're available, I'm sure we can come to some sort of an agreement. But I tell you what, if someone come to me and offered me a block of land for nothing to serve the purpose for what they're trying to achieve, I'd think it was a first prize, not second.
Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just throw a curveball in there. I know Councillor Potter and myself have actually driven up there, but the top of Alfred Street, there's some park area. That's just a suggestion that might be able to be rezoned or something look into. That's a fairly large piece of land up there that I would hesitate to say that it's seriously not utilised in any shape or form, even being a parkland. There's some rubbish there that I believe council herded up there some period of time ago in the middle of that. And we've been up there looking at some water issues previously with Councillor Potter. That may be something to consider as well, and I'd like council in this chambers to take that on board and perhaps look into it through our departments and managers as to what might be available there, Mr Mayor.
Through you, Mr CEO, would I be able to move a foreshadowed motion? Note a foreshadowed motion. Okay, I'd like to put forward a foreshadowed motion. South Burnett Regional Council delegates authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into negotiations with the Kingaroy Memorandum RSL sub-branch for the prospective sale of 6,000 square metres of subdivided land at the northern end of the Pound Street allotment. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Stay with the original motion, Councillor Shoemaker's motion. Do we have anyone else had a chance to speak before we go to Councillor Shoemaker to close?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, just on that foreshadow, you suggesting the southern end, the northern end? Do you not mean the southern end?
Yes, sorry, the southern end. My sincere apologies. Thank you, Councillor Henson. It's the southern end. Thank you very much. Further speakers before we go to Councillor Shoemaker to close. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Honestly, this offer is made in good faith, and I have had conversations with a community housing provider who sees an opportunity to house people on this lot today. I know across the region we have a growing unmet housing need. I know this is a significant issue, and I absolutely want to work with the RSL and our community to support the outcome of more veteran housing. I have done some investigation. I have actually gone and stood by that drain when there's significant amounts of rain coming through Kingaroy, and yes, that drain does flow. However, I have also noticed that there are a number of houses and units and things that are in that exact same location, and that they have been able to mitigate this issue with appropriate design and construction. Not all of them. I note there is one that's been there, was built way before its time and shouldn't have been built where it is. But I do honestly believe that with clever designing, with modern day design, you could achieve a really beautiful outcome on that lot of land. What I'm talking about is around 4,000 square metres, which is the original proposal that the RSL had put forward to council. It then grew to 6,000 square metres over time when they saw that opportunity for growth. I agree, that's a wonderful, exciting opportunity for growth. The reality is there are few vacant lots of land in the region big enough that are 6,000 square metres within short walking distance to town and the CBD. This lot of land sits adjacent across the road from the Memorial Park. I personally would love to live there. It's a beautiful spot, and I can see a great opportunity for our veterans to engage in all the RSL activities that happen at Anzac Day and Remembrance Day, and so many wonderful activities that we are all joined together for around the memorial and in the park there. This motion, I understand, is a compromise. It's not the RSL's first option. And honestly, if I could wave a magic wand and give everybody their desired outcomes for Pound Street, I absolutely would. But the reality is we just can't. And the reality is, in the conversations I've had over the last month, there are so many, and since coming to council, there are so many options for that block of land. This motion, I really do commend to the chamber. This motion would enable the, with that boundary realignment, which we've already acted a resolution to undertake, the RSL could commence preliminary designs right now. It is ready. If we go to an impact accessible application, it will take months and it will cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. This is an outcome that you could achieve tomorrow. And I understand that it's not the full size that you would like, and I wish that it was a little bit bigger, but it's just not. And unfortunately, I've been through council's land register, and this is the only real available lot of residential land that we have available. So I would like to make this offering in good faith to the RSL, because I would love to see people living on that lot of land, and I think they could actually achieve a really wonderful outcome. And I'm happy to share some of the designs and things that I've seen that are being achieved through social and affordable housing. They're beautiful designs, and I think this really could achieve a wonderful outcome for those 6 people who desperately need a roof over their head tonight.
Right, that closes the debate. Sorry, General Manager O'May.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just through you, just wanted to clarify my understanding that this would be an impact assessable application on that allotment because it is in an actual public utility. So I think we have had discussions. It is in the residential zone, but there is a zoning over it for public utilities which relates to it being on the drain. I've just been madly checking on the thing. So I think it for the development of it for residential use or community use would probably still trigger an impact assessable application. And apologies for the late notice, but I just thought it was important just to, probably put that out. And if this goes through, if we do a discussion with the RSL, we would be able to assist in that process. And obviously, as discussed earlier, it is impacted by the flood overlay, which would be something that half of Kingaroy is impacted by, and that's a design we would need to consider. But yeah, apologies for the late introduction, but just important to clarify that.
Thank you, General Manager O'May. That certainly is significant. So when Councillor Shoemaker says that it could start straight away, the reality is that the development application process for Haley Street would be similar to what you'd have to go through for Pound Street. So the time frames could roughly be similar anyway. Would that be fair to say or not?
Through you. So I think process would be similar, but they are certainly two different zonings, being principal centre, which has got a purpose, and the public utility community zoning is a specialised zoning that's just put in those particular places to allow for normally used for things like your schools, education facilities, hospitals that are actually located within. So this is actually located in the residential zoning, surrounded by residential zoning, and it's just the allotments that are covered by the drain and adjoining. So yeah, it would be the same process, but yeah, just the assessment would be slightly different because they're different zones.
In light of that new information, Councillor Shoemaker, we'll let you wrap up.
My apologies, Mr Mayor, I was unaware of that, and I can assure you I've done my homework. I'm actually reading page 6 of our land review report that we adopted at the last council meeting that actually says the land asset was identified for immediate sale and open to the market. It's been investigated and, quote, has no apparent impediments to the sale such as tenure and encumbrances and council operational use, existing or future, but may have planning or site constraints such as drainage or impacts of flooding, which we were aware of. These properties may require resurvey and registration of easements, and I was under the impression if we resurveyed that was sufficient to actually trigger this. Look, I do apologise. Yes, you would have to go through the same impact accessible application. I do think it would be less onerous, being that it is in a residential lot rather than trying to convert principal centre zoning. And my sincere apologies, it was not my intent to mislead the chamber, and I've been misinformed.
Okay, let's wrap up the debate. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, Erkins, Jones, Potter and Henson. Those against? Councillors Duff and Otto. The motion has been carried, 5 votes to 2. Thank you all. Now,
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put forward another motion.
go ahead. Does my foreshadow lapse? Oh, right. Well, okay. Well, can I move a motion off the floor? Because I'd like to move that motion off the floor then, if I could, please, Mr. CEO.
All right. So in the sequence of and without sort of dragging things out, so the sequence of resolution. So the notice of motion was dealt with. There was a foreshadow. Foreshadow's been carried. So any further foreshadows attached to that would lapse because that one's been carried. There is still the confidential section, which is the Pound Street discussion. So if that's coming off the floor, Kimberley's got the resolution, so we can, that would be at that point, would be dealing with it then. And depending on where Councillor Shoemaker is going with hers is, do we move into the confidential section now, Mayor, and have the Pound Street discussion?
So, Mr. CEO, the motion that I've got there off the floor could not be discussed in a public meeting. To your knowledge, does that have to go into closed?
Yeah, it could be certainly discussed in the public. I was just referring to the sequence of the
Process,
reports.
yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay. Well, I certainly would like to now move that off the floor as a separate independent motion. Do we have a seconder, if that's okay? Yep. Councillor Duff, seconded. I'll speak to that now. Look, I understand what councillors have said, that you're not keen to see that parcel of land gifted to the RSL. I guess I'm wondering, would you be prepared to consider selling it to the RSL if the CEO was able to negotiate an outcome that would be favourable to council under delegation? So that's what the proposal's for. Again, 14 units. My understanding is that the RSL have come in here more than once, I think at least twice. They've met with us, they've come to a community engagement day. They've made it really clear that this is the parcel of land that would suit their needs. They're looking at acquiring some other properties close by to develop in potentially for an RSL community centre. And they're also certainly very keen on this because of its location to SB Care and support services that those on NDIS can access through SB Care. It's close to the shopping complex that's down there. It would support that shopping complex where we've got IGA and other shops. There's a chemist there and so forth. So, look, I think the RSL have made it very clear that this is their preference, and I'd like to see us at least give the RSL the opportunity to negotiate with the CEO on the potential to buy the block of land. So I'd like to put that forward. Further speakers, Councillor Schumacher.
Just in relation to process, Mr Mayor, are we going to go into closed session to review the reports provided and discuss them as a council, or are we just going to put forward our solutions?
Yes, we will be going into closed once this matter has been dealt with.
Okay, look, by all means, I would be happy to consider this option after we've explored all other options for Pound Street. I do believe, as I've said previously, we have received advice that if we subdivide this lot of land, that we will be essentially stranding the remaining part of the asset, the remaining part of the principal centre zone, and it could make it difficult to achieve the, it could make it less incentivising for, trying to think of the word, less appealing for potential developers, such as those who might like to develop as over 60s retirement village. So I, by all means, would be supportive of this motion if we were discussing it in the context of all things and after we've been through a thorough and rigorous process. I will not support this motion at this point in time, and I do have another motion in mind. However, I would prefer to receive the reports and the information from council before I put that motion forward.
Councillor Atkins.
I believe if we're going to be dealing with anything, we should be looking at the whole thing as a whole. And I feel a little bit ambushed that you keep coming on with these things because we have got a confidential section. I feel we've dealt with the subdivision of this block at this time, and now I think we should be going in and looking at the area as a whole. Again, if that is to be subdivided up and sold, I would like to see that go to tender. You know, I think it is a valuable block of land, whether it be subdivided off or whether we sell it as a whole, but I don't believe we should be chopping little bits of it off before we look at the whole section. And as I said, I do feel a little pressured into this, that you keep coming forward with this. I think we've made our position clear, and we need to look at the whole thing in the confidential section and not be made to look like we're just being pig-headed, because I don't think we are. I think, well, speaking for myself only, you know, as I said before, we have got a responsibility to ratepayers across the region. While I understand and fully supportive of the RSL and what they do, I am not prepared to be sacrificing what is a big asset for the whole region to just to be looking after one small section of the region. you are the one that tell us all the time about our deficit. You know, that's a valuable asset. And I think we need to be, as a responsibility to our ratepayers, we have, you know, it's a valuable asset and we need to be making the most of it.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I can't see a problem with this motion, because then if it's delegated to the CEO to negotiate, and if there is an offer that the RSL are prepared to put on the table, that would help to inform us in our decision-making process. If we don't support this motion, that would never be able to be, like, it's not, that's going to delay if they were to make an offer. So that's just part, to me, that's only fair if there's a chance, because you didn't want to gift it to them. Now there's been a suggestion that they may be prepared to purchase it. Why wouldn't you want to look at that as an option? And we're not saying do it, we're saying ask them, enter into negotiation. So I can't see a problem with it, and I think it would help to inform this council chamber about what are viable options for not only what's in the confidential, but here in this open meeting and with the RSL sub-branch. So to me, I can't see a problem with it.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you. I know I've said it before, I'm not ready to commit to anything here. I'm probably the same as Councillor Shoemaker. If once we go into closed, we look at all the proposals, because there's a bloody lot there, Mr Mayor, and we need to be sure of what we want for our community, and our community has put other proposals through as well. It's not just us as councillors. Community have come to us and given us information and advice. So I think we actually owe it to the rest of the community to look through everything we have been given before we sit here and make decisions for them.
Further speakers? Okay, I'll just close. Look, I understand what you're saying, Councillor Erkins, about financial responsibility, and yes, I do often talk about the deficit. This will make no difference to the deficit. This is a capital asset from which the proceeds would go into our restricted cash. Yes, it would make a difference to our bank balance, but not to our annual deficit. In fact, I would suggest, Councillor Erkins, this will actually improve our deficit, because we will be, under my initial proposal, you know, there's the opportunity to collect rates off a property that has been, there's a thing called in accounting opportunity cost. For 10 years, that block has sat vacant. That's 10 years that we weren't collecting rates off that block. And we need to make a decision. And I think in that decision, we need to consider the capacity to generate rates revenue from that land into the future and derive an income stream. But it will not, and that's how we help our deficit, by establishing more rateable properties.
Mr Mayor, I was under the impression that the RSL are actually an incorporated association or a charity, and they don't pay rates.
Okay, where's our finance guys? Kerry, would you like to address what fees and charges the RSL would incur on that block of land? Thank you. If they were to build a number of units.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would have to have a little bit of a look, but from memory, I do believe there are some of the RSL's properties, depending on what they're using them for, that they get remissions for, which means they wouldn't pay general rates. It would only be some of the utilities. But we would just have to have a look if, depending on what they're going to build, if that would fit under those categories to then get that remission. Okay, all right. Well, that's something we'd have to take on notice. We'll take that as a question on notice, Mr. Chair. We can clarify what would be the rates implication of that. Okay, well, I think we've discussed this one enough. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Duff and Councillor Otto. Those against? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Erkins, Councillor Jones, Councillor Potter and Councillor Henshin. The motion has been defeated. Thank you all. Right, if there's no further business, we'll go straight to 7.1, whereby the recommendation is that Council considers the confidential report listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. The matter is considered to be confidential under 254JG of the Local Government Regulation. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter. Seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour?
Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now go into closed session, and I respectfully ask the members of the gallery to please leave the room. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a recommendation as presented. Do we have a mover? Okay, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Henson. Councillor Shoemaker, did you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly have taken a good look at these offers, and certainly I know as a council we have discussed them. We have, though, sought legal advice and are unable to accept these offers on the premise of legal advice. And for those reasons, I am supportive of this motion. And yeah, that's about all I've got to add in relation to that.
Right, so we've got the motion there, items 1, 2 and 3. Any further speakers? Shall we go to the vote on that? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, your motion, your next motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that South Burnett Regional Council develop a conditional tender to divest of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy, Lot 13 on RP 814986, and offer the land for sale for a proposed mixed-use development or commercial and or residential use by way of tender in the first instance, and if not sold, list for sale on the open market. I'd like to seek a seconder. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Erkins. Councillor Shoemaker, did you wish to speak further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the Pound Street site is vacant and is not delivering any benefit to council or the community. This is something we all agree on. Whilst we have received overwhelming interest in the land, it's clear there's no one proposal that the community supports. From the street chat, messages, emails and conversations I've been part of, I can see there's clear division across the community about what Pound Street should be used for, making this decision extremely difficult. Hence, I'd like to summarise the key themes from the feedback I've received. Option 1, community feedback indicates that many people would like to see some big box stores like a Kmart, Coles or Spotlight established on the land. The counter argument to this is that we have a retail shopping precinct and that there are several challenges in getting a national retailer to town. The land use assessment undertaken for Pound Street found, as per our demographics, that many households have less discretionary income to spend on non-essential items, and online shopping trends across Australia have continued to grow. Kingaroy currently hosts a Big W, and typically one discount department store is provided for every 40 to 50,000 people. Based on the benchmarks for supermarkets in regional Australia, Kingaroy currently hosts 3 supermarkets. While projected population growth indicates that Kingaroy could grow to demand 4 full-line supermarkets by 2041, it suggested densities in surrounding towns and villages are low, and other full-line supermarkets and discount department stores are available in surrounding regional towns of Gympie, Dalby and Toowoomba. I've also had feedback from residents concerned that if a retail facility is introduced on the site, it could detract from the CBD and increase competition in an already struggling retail market. The counter argument is that local real estate agents have indicated that there are a number of national retailers interested in coming to Kingaroy, however there is limited land. Option 2, many have said council should seek funding and use the land to create a sport and recreation precinct. Currently, the high school hall hosts the only indoor courts in town, and the use of these is restrictive as the site is state government owned. Hence, who would own, manage and maintain the facility? Our council has struggled to keep up with the maintenance of the PCYC, and I'm of the view that our council couldn't afford to maintain another sporting precinct without the cost increases coming from our ratepayers. As found in the land use assessment, uses that benefit the community generally do not generate the financial outcomes attractive for private investment. Hence, this is a sporting precinct. Hence, this sporting precinct would come at a cost to council and our ratepayers, and we have to balance these factors. Option 3, enter into a partnership or sell the land for a retirement village. The counter argument is there is a group who's proposing to build 110 independent living units at Markwell Street. The retirement living village is based on an affordable rent model, and I understand plans for construction have commenced. The entity owns 41 villages across Australia and are the largest provider of affordable seniors rental accommodation. I also understand that the redevelopment of the Lady Bajocki Peterson Community Hospital also proposes to build an associated aged care facility, initially with 100 rooms, to meet the growing needs of an ageing population. Potentially, this will mean housing options for more than 220 local people and could free up other housing stocks in the region. Current residential aged care includes a 60-bed facility at Blue Care, Kingaroy, Kennarinja Aged Care Facility, 94 beds for low and high care, and 19 single-storey units for independent living for those over 70 at the Urana Lutheran Complex, and 12 villas at the Regis Baramba Villas. In Nanango at Southern Cross Care Carinya, there are cottage-style accommodation for 40 residents, a 61-bed facility at Southern Cross Care Castra in Mergen, and 46 high care beds at Forest View Residential Care Unit, and 22 independent living units at the Laurels in Wondai. My question is, does Kingaroy and the South Burnett have capacity to support both the proposed 110 bed development, unit development, and South Bank Medical Group's proposal, as well as an additional retirement village? I believe if that is true, we will see developers come forward supporting the concept and the idea of the over 60s village, which is a great idea and something that was explored through the land use assessment. Option 4, an accommodation precinct to support a renewable energy future. I do absolutely support this and see the need for creating more accommodation for workers in our town. However, my concern is the risk of a boom and bust cycle, and I believe we need to work with developers, we need to work with major employers, and we need to work with the developers of these renewable energy projects to investigate a collaborative model and explore what options are on the table. I'd like to see us establish a working group to progress these ideas and investigate a collaborative model. If a developer is going to be involved, they will be expecting a return in investment, and as a council and as shareholders for our ratepayers, we should expect the same return in investment. I believe the current market conditions indicate that there are buyers interested in developing the site. There may also be opportunities to leverage the funds raised from the sale for the development of other lots of land council has recognised in its recent review of land holdings report. My thinking is if we sell the land, there would be potentially over $1 million available for council to invest in developing its other land assets, which could create even more housing outcomes and raise further funds for our council to invest in the region, particularly if we use these funds to develop some of our underutilised parkland in partnership with the state government, which is an outcome from the Housing and Homelessness Forum. I ask, are we stifling development opportunities if we don't support this proposal to put the last large remaining lot of principal centre zoned land out to tender for consideration? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am supportive of this, but the conditional tender, I believe, is going to be putting timelines around the development, and also that it would, I'm hoping, have some community benefit in those conditions, and that, as we've discussed in confidential, that the likes of the RSL sub-branch would have an opportunity to tender, and yeah, just wanted to check if that was all in those conditions around community benefit and also timelines. Thank you.
Short answer, it's not developed yet. So, yeah, the draft will be developed and circulated, but certainly the put and call and the recourse provisions, timelines would be necessary, and then how the weighting would be developed up. Yeah, certainly. All under active consideration.
Councillor Ricketts.
What can I say? We had heaps of discussion during the confidential. Kirsty said it all, so I think we should just move forward and do what we've got to do.
Further speakers? No. Councillor Schumacher, anything to wrap up? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Those against? Carried 5 votes to 2. Okay. Yep. Carried 5 votes to 2. Carried 5 votes to 2. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that concludes the meeting. Thank you everyone for your participation. We'll now call the meeting to a close.